Welcome to Faith, Fiction, and Folklore, as we like to call it, the Tri-F podcast, where we try not to mess the podcast up. So, last time we talked about we began a video where a preacher is beginning an account of Anton LaVey's death. And Trevor, I'm going to let you take it from there.
And so now he's on to talking about what happened after Anton LaVey's death. And he's kind of explaining and going over, the story of what happened and
the various confirmations.
The various confirmations. And I believe he actually shows paperwork here in a minute.
Paperwork. Oh, well, that'll be interesting. Okay. Because that would interest me personally, what kind of paperwork there is to verify this whole thing.
It's just the time of death lining up with his story somehow.
Okay. Well, that would be good. That would be good to have. So, all right. Well, is there anything else we need to bring up about it before we begin?
No, I think that covers it.
No, that covers it? All right. Well, with that, we will start this sucker. All right, here we go.
It was a female voice said, "You killed my father." I said, "Who are you, Carla or Zena?" And the voice said, "I'm Zena." And I said,
okay, so Zena, he believes is one of the women in the coven. Anton LaVey's coven.
These two, Zena and Carla, are Anton's other children.
Okay.
And they have not defected from the church.
Okay.
They're still devoted to Anton.
Right, and so we posited the idea last time that this is more than likely, if this account is true, one of the demons still talking through the girl, because really we don't have any reason to think that these two people from the coven would know that the preachers there really know much of anything. Like, hypothetically, if these other women could, let's say they were astral projecting and watching the whole scene from the spirit realm or whatever, there's no reason why they couldn't reassert control over her body and then put her back in the hotel and not let her run to him. So it doesn't make sense for it to be actually one of the people from the coven. This would have to be a demon, because the demon would be the only one that would really be in a position to know what was going on. Because if they really still had that much of a hold, then there's no reason for her to get away from them. So like, how could they astral project into this girl and then only be able to watch what was going on, whereas Anton was able to like manipulate her body and whatnot.
Completely control her,
Yeah, so that the idea that it's the women from the coven doesn't make a lot of sense. So either he's lying, which I'm not saying he is, or is this a demon manifesting as one of the other women?
Right.
Maybe. We're guessing. These are all guesses, but anyhow.
We're guessing.
Yeah.
Okay, Zena. So you know that we have authority from Jesus Christ to cut your silver cord. We just did it to your father because he was out of his body on the prowl on the astral plane. You know we can do it. If you don't get back in your own body, we're going to cut your silver cord. Just like that. She said, "Don't do that. I'll go." Just like that, she was gone. And we looked at each other and we thought, wow, there's some heavy stuff going down tonight.
The Cloud-like design offers a 15mm thick outsole, designed with improved arch support for unrivaled.
So we worshiped and sang and praised the Lord, and we sang till the light came up that day, and we just said, everybody keep your eyes on the news channels, and we're going to hear that Anton died last night.
There it is.
We did.
Okay.
And of course, we have his death certificate and the story that they reported, which is he died of his heart stopped, and they.
Okay, before we go on, first of all, we need to give credit to the YouTube channel. This is Deep Believers YouTube channel. So if you want to hear the whole account and get a better sense of the guy for yourself, you need to go to her YouTube channel and watch it and go through the whole thing, make up your own mind. So that's number one. Number two, if we're right about the idea that this is a demon instead of like some other sister astral projecting,
Xena, yeah.
Xena, why would it go through those kinds of theatrics?
Why? Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, so either it was actually Xena and we're wrong, or there's some kind of charade game going on. But the question with that would be, what would be the point of that kind of game? And perhaps to affirm the idea that you can cut a silver cord, but if you go down that route, then you're assuming that the whole story is a lie. But this is I don't know really how to go forward from here, because this is kind of a question that needs to be answered, I suppose, because I, for one, do not know why in the world they would let her leave if they could still astral project into her, if all the sisters had that ability. That bothers me about this account. But I don't see the benefit that a demon would have in leaving over the threat of the silver cord thing.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, well, either way you go, there's aspects to that either scenario that don't make sense. Now, maybe there's something that I don't know, some other factor that I'm not considering. I guess I just don't know enough about astral projection. I don't know what the rules are. I don't know. Do you have to try to find another body? Can you just hang out in the spirit realm and watch things from that angle? In which case, what would be the point of that other than just to, entertain yourself? So, I mean, I don't know. So, but that is a potential issue with the story, maybe assuming that there isn't some other kind of information I'm not thinking about or I'm not privy to. Because if it's a demon, it doesn't make any sense to go through those theatrics. If it's the person, how did they know that she was with him in the first place? And why would they even bother talking to the guy, especially if they just killed her dad?
That's a deep question.
Yeah, well, that was kind of the point behind doing this, is we're trying to, pick apart the story and see if there's ways that we can suss out whether or not this is true based on the details he gives. And that's kind of what we're looking for in this story, is we're trying to figure out, okay, are there irreconcilable differences in the account that would leave it impossible either way, such as a detail like that. So if you keep digging and you don't have an answer to that, then it's more than likely that the story isn't true. But, it's still not conclusive. We're just trying to make a best inference. So that's just we're just practicing listening to people's accounts and going through the details to try to decide what we think. I'm still on the fence myself. Since astral projection is such a unknown realm to me, I don't know what the norms in that world will be. Maybe it is normal for people to just hang out in the spirit world and watch what was going on. But I'm like, what would be the point of that? Because from what I understand of the story, if Anton's astral projecting, this coven is around him, hanging out, and I can't imagine why they would do that other than to kind of watch him and make sure things go okay. If that's not what they're doing, why would they be astral projecting during that time? If that's not what they're doing, what are they doing? You know what I mean?
Well, sometimes if you astral project and you go too far from your body, that leaves your body open for anything else to get into.
Okay.
So my theory is he had this coven around him to protect him in the astral realm, in the spirit realm, from anything else taking his body while he's gone.
Which makes you wonder why they'd worship those trashy things in the first place. It's like, yeah, we're gonna astral project in the name of these entities that we worship, but we don't want these entities tormenting our body if we get too far away from them because they're apparently animalistic. I mean, it's
right.
It's like, well, we're going to worship this malevolent force that could just as easily kill us as help us. It just seems silly, but...
I mean, what's the original definition of Satan?
The original definition of Satan?
Yeah.
I mean, I just know what he's referred to in the Bible. He's the accuser. I don't know beyond that.
The original definition of Satan, I think it's Greek, comes out to adversary.
Adversary.
So they're literally worshiping their own adversary.
Yeah. I mean, we know that. But I'm like, what are they thinking?
Right.
Well, like what kind of headspace justifies worshiping an entity that could just as easily harm you as help you?
Exactly.
I mean, that force might be real, but that ain't worth worshiping.
No.
No.
He's called the father of lies for a reason.
Yeah, it's just, how do you get people gullible enough to believe it? That baffles me sometimes. But I mean, it depends on the lie, though, too.
Well, I mean, you tell them they can eat a fruit, and they'll be like, oh, boom, there you go.
Yeah, but in that instance, they had something that they wanted. You know, there was a mutually beneficial exchange. You get knowledge, even if it's knowledge you don't really want necessarily. But, you know, there's a tit for tat thing going. So maybe it's the power dynamic. Maybe they think that they're going to get more powerful from these things.
Yeah, and Anton did get more powerful.
Well,
and then he died.
I mean, it was kind of... I mean, I'm sure it was novel. I don't know if it's necessarily powerful, but I suppose in a way, yeah. Maybe. I don't know. I just...
Baffling, isn't it?
Well, it's like, assuming this stuff is true, what are you really gaining by even doing it? You know, okay, you can astral project. You can't touch anything. You can't move anything. You might be able to possess a relative and annoy them. But in what sense does that actually make you powerful? I mean, especially if you can only stay in them for like 20 minutes to half an hour or something. How much damage do you think you can really do other than just ruin their reputation or something? So maybe if you want to get even with somebody. But again, it sounds like you have to have a particularly strong tie to a person to even do that. And if you're wanting to go after an enemy or somebody you don't like, well, you wouldn't have a strong enough tie to pull that off. I wouldn't think. Yeah. But again, I don't know these rules. I don't know what the lore, if you will, actually is around all this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, we're learning as we go, and these are the questions popping in my head. But
I'm still learning as I go too.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting idea. Like, I've heard that there's this satanic sect that thinks they can become vampires, and I'm like, okay. Assuming that's true, well, congratulations, you can drink blood, but you can't stay out in the sun. Why? Like, what do you want? Like, what's so like, you get to live forever, okay, unless you stay out too late, in which case you fry like a crisp or get a bad sunburn or something. You know, what's the benefit necessarily? I mean, I guess if you're super disciplined, you can,
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
It's like, when you sit there and think about it, it's just, even if it's all true, it's a waste of time. Why would you even bother with it? I don't know either. It's a very baffling... I think it's just the novelty. You know what I mean? It's the idea of being able to do something new and experience something exciting and not part of the average norm. And there's also, I think, an ego component. If you get access to hidden knowledge or something, that makes you more enlightened than the rest of the crowd or some such thing.
All right.
Which there's a certain degree of truth to that, but, not all knowledge is worth knowing, and that's part of the thing too. And you can't learn everything, so maybe you need to invest your time in learning something productive, like carpentry or, anything else. I mean, how are you supposed to make a living astral projecting? Unless you want to be a psychic, I guess you could be a psychic, but I don't know how much money those guys actually make. I would assume not much, since their buildings are typically pretty shoddy. So I don't know. I'm sitting there trying to act all open-minded for this stuff, and I'm acting like a dad blame cynic. I don't know. So, all right, moving on.
Say that it happened the next morning in the Bay Area, but we know what really happened because we were there. And that is the amazing story of the demise of Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan.
Wow. So is the Church of Satan no longer as strong as it used to be? I mean, is it still around?
Well, it's not. It's not nearly as strong as it used to be. What happened is the sergeant at arms, Michael Aquino, he had left to form the Temple of Set. He took over Anton's place working for the Department of Defense, our government. But in any event, there was a fight. But
look, I have no problem believing that our government is satanic. It's hard to imagine them militarizing astral projection. So,
Yeah, well, they've been looking into it for a while now.
I've heard they've been looking into certain psychic abilities, like like that movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats. You
Well, I mean,
knock over a goat if you pop a blood blister in your forehead and stare at the goat really hard, which seems super productive. Like that seems like you'd really be able to utilize that in the army.
Well, there's a thing that they did in Vietnam. It was what they started to use for seeing in the dark, night vision.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of the vision being green, it was red originally in Vietnam.
Interesting. Why is that?
What was it called? There's a name for it. I don't remember what it's called. I'd have to research it.
I don't know.
But the vision was red because they were messing around with it, trying to see in the dark. And the accounts from a few of the military guys that were there, they started seeing stuff like monsters and stuff, and they would start opening up fire on these monsters or whatever.
I see.
And so the government changed them to green instead of red.
Different frequency, maybe?
Yeah, something to do with the how they were, the frequency or something. I don't know. I didn't really research it much.
Might be worth researching. I hadn't heard that story before.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Huh. Well, we'll let him finish up this last thought, and then we'll call it good. So let me turn this on really quick.
Between Blanche and Carla over who had the rights to the money associated with the Church of Satan. So there of the royal family was Blanche, and then Carla and Zena. Zena left and later renounced Satanism and the Royal Order of the Werewolves, which she had started with a German guy in New Mexico. She renounced them both, and I've tried to get a hold of Zena. I still pray for her, but I think Zena LaVey saw the power of God for the first time that night, and I think it got her attention because she had formerly said she left the Church of Satan to start the Order of Werewolves because it had greater power. And I think that night she saw the greater power of authentic Christianity. And last I heard, she was doing an art studio and doing self-help programs on the internet out of Paris, France. I don't know really the details of what's become of her.
Okay, we're going to call that good. Final note. What's more powerful than the Church of Satan? Werewolves, apparently.
Apparently.
Transforming once a month and losing all your sentience and eating who knows what in the meantime. That's the ultimate definition of power. So, moving up in the world. And then she got into self-help, which might be more useless than werewolves. Again, moving up in the world.
Well, it's all controlled by the same spirits.
You know, that would not surprise me at all. I mean, there is some self-help stuff that's useful, but, it's hit and miss. So,
Yeah.
Anywho, so that
Like
was the
motivational speaking.
Yeah. Well, I knew a guy that was into that, and he said a bunch of it was, a lot of those guys didn't have the best intentions. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
So, anywho. So, do you have any final thoughts about this account? I assume you believe the guy?
I believe him for the most part. But I like to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I believe everyone as far as I can.
Yeah. I don't, unfortunately. I'm willing to believe the guy, probably think astral projection is a thing. I mean, I told you my experience with it, so I guess I kind of have to. But, I mean, I might change my mind if I, met the guy and spoke to him one-on-one. I'm not discounting the idea because of cynicism towards the idea of astral projection. It's just that one hole in the story that we talked about kind of gives me some pause. It's not confirmation. And again, if you want to learn more and hear the account for yourself and get the guy's whole story, go to Deep Believer's YouTube channel and look at that. Decide for yourself. But it's a 3-hour-long interview. We do not have time
to go over it all.
Yeah, to go through that. So, yeah. I certainly think, like I said, I certainly think astral projection is a thing. I don't know how deep you can get into it and nor do I guess I doubt the productivity or the point behind it. I've got a blasted fly bugging me. Good night.
Stupid fly.
I know. And then I said there's a fly bugging me and it flies right in front of my face and makes me knock off my little pop filter thing. That's wonderful.
Wonderful.
And joys of these podcasts. So anyway, sadly, I'm a little skeptical still. More skeptical than I was to start with, frankly. But could be true.
Well, that's why we do these things.
Yeah, we're going to just listen to the accounts and evaluate them when they come up.
And ask questions. So, I suppose the most glaring thing would be, was this person a Christian, the daughter, when all this happened? And that's kind of the thing that's what makes me really skeptical about these accounts whenever you start talking about people who are Christians who, I mean, I guess unless you're Pentecostal, you believe that you have the Holy Spirit upon receiving Christ. And so how can you be possessed after that point? I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're willing to believe.
Well, and the thing is like based on our own experiences of this stuff, you have to go pretty far down the rabbit hole to create an opening large enough for those things to get you, as it were.
Yeah.
Because they're malicious enough, they'd possess you in an instant if they could. And the reason they don't possess everybody is because they can't.
Yeah.
So there has to be ways that these things get in.
Well, I mean, if you listen to the story of Job, they have to have permission to do anything.
Yeah, they had permission to torment him. And God set limitations on that.
Yeah.
And so there's obviously limitations on what they can do and when they can do it and why they can do it. We know there's familial trauma is a big component. Once you receive Christ, I think oppression is about as bad as it could get. I'm skeptical at the idea that you could be possessed after you're saved.
I don't know.
Well, that's my position until somebody gives me a reason to not think so. I mean, obviously. I mean, if they were scared enough of Christ when he was on earth, to beg him not to send them back to hell, then when he's inside, like in your heart, how could they stay in the same place?
Nothing can come against you, right?
It doesn't make sense. And so I think you have to have a pretty different ideology, a different understanding of the scriptures than I have to be able to, I guess, conceive of a world where that could happen. So, but again, the guy did not mention her spiritual condition at the time, whether she had accepted Christ. And he said it earlier in the video.
Earlier.
We just didn't, find it.
Play it.
Yeah.
Find it. Play that.
Yeah, but that would be the first big red flag when I hear these things. Is like, okay, well, this person is obviously a Christian, and there's also this kind of gimmicky, I don't know what denomination it's tied to, but there's a variant of this stuff where people assume they're possessed over every little thing. It's like
right.
Any sort of addiction or any sort of bad habit or propensity for a sin of any particular kind, they just assume that's automatically,
taken care of.
Well, they assume it's associated with a demon. Like they have to have a demon in them in order to be doing those bad things, which in my mind is just a way to skirt responsibility. It's like, no, you're a fallen creature.
Yeah.
You're a big dumb idiot because you're a human. And so you shouldn't be blaming demons every time you sin.
Right.
And so and you see these people that will come up and ask for deliverance over and over and over again. And there's nothing wrong with them. It just makes them feel like they're doing something to confront their problem rather than actually confronting the problem directly.
Well, they're not truly repenting.
Well, yeah, it's a way. Repenting doesn't necessarily mean to turn from sin. It just means to change your mind, and that's kind of some Christianese that I don't. If you want to get nitpicky about definitions, but you kind of have to, especially like in the lose your salvation debate and stuff. But regardless, they're not confronting their sin. They're not dealing with their sins. It's a way to dodge with the inner work that you have to do to overcome something. Just kind of blame it on a demon, and hope that if you get rid of the demon, the sin is just magically going to go away. But that's just not how life works.
No.
There's usually a emotional issue or some kind of internal problem you've got to deal with in order to get past the sin,
Yeah.
And this avoids that introspection that you need, or the idea of blaming a demon dodges the introspection you need to actually overcome those sins, in my opinion. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe we can get somebody on here who can correct my error. All right, Mr. Trevor, you got any final thoughts?
Not at the moment, no.
Not at the moment? Well, I guess I don't either. I have bloviated long enough. So, guys, thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. If you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Rumble. We can also be found on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Thank you again very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.